Hi guys. I never expected to feel this empty, sitting in my own home, looking at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. The woman who had vowed to spend the rest of her life with me. And yet, here we were. It was a Wednesday evening, and the rain outside had turned the world gray. It was a typical night, quiet, uneventful, but something in the air felt different. Like everything was suddenly shifting beneath me, and I had no idea what was coming. Olivia had just walked in, and I immediately noticed how stiff her movements were. The usual smile, the one I always believed was genuine, didn't reach her eyes. She seemed tense, like she was carrying a weight, a burden. But I had no idea how heavy that weight truly was. "Olivia, we need to talk," I said, the words coming out in a low, steady voice. I had been thinking about this for days, maybe weeks, trying to piece together the fragments of doubt that had been gnawing at me. I had caught glimpses of something off, messages on her phone, strange silences when I came home early from work, a lingering look when she thought I wasn't paying attention. But it wasn't until that night that everything finally clicked. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Her eyes flickered to mine for a split second, and I saw her swallow hard. She had been avoiding my gaze ever since I found the email. I had confronted her, but she had denied everything. Said it was nothing, just an old friend reaching out, nothing serious. But I knew better. I had gone through the phone. I had seen the photos, the messages. Ryan. The name kept coming up, again and again. Ryan, someone I had never heard of, someone I knew nothing about, someone who, according to Olivia, had no place in our life. But as I dug deeper, it became clear that Ryan had been in her life for a long time. Longer than me, probably. "Why, Olivia?" I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of the question. I wasn't angry yet, just broken, like a man staring at the ruins of his life, trying to make sense of it. "Why did you do this to us?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she sat down slowly, her fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the edge of the table. I wanted to shake her, to force the truth out, but I stayed still, waiting. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice weak, almost apologetic. She didn't look at me. Her gaze was fixed on the floor, on her hands, anywhere but me. I swallowed hard, feeling a cold knot tighten in my chest. "You didn't mean for it to happen?" I repeated, my words like a punch to the gut. "Is that supposed to make it okay?" She finally looked up, her eyes glossy, as if she was on the verge of tears. But there was something in her eyes I couldn't place. Was it guilt? Regret? Or was it something else entirely? I don't know how to explain it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It just happened." "Olivia," I said, standing up now, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "Don't give me that. You've been with him for months, haven't you? I know about the messages, the late nights, the lies. I know you were seeing him behind my back." Her eyes darted away from mine, but she didn't deny it. She didn't even try to explain. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "I need you to tell me the truth," I said, forcing my voice to steady. "Who is Ryan? And why didn't you tell me about him? Why did you lie?" She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. He's someone I met a long time ago. Before we got together." Her voice was quiet, almost distant, as if she was retreating into herself. "We lost touch for a while, but when we reconnected, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to hurt you, Ethan. I didn't want to ruin everything." My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my blood boiling beneath my skin. "But you did ruin everything," I said, the words sharp like glass. "You lied to me, Olivia. You betrayed me. And now, you're telling me this was all just some casual affair?" She shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears. "No, it wasn't like that. I never meant to hurt you. But I needed something. I needed him. I needed him in ways I couldn't explain." She paused, her lips trembling. "It wasn't just physical, Ethan. It was, I don't know. He made me feel things I haven't felt in a long time. Things I wasn't getting from you." I recoiled at the words, the implications of them. "So, this is my fault? You're blaming me?" I could feel the anger rising in me now, and it was hard to hold back. You couldn't come to me, talk to me, figure it out like adults? Instead, you chose to sleep with another man? She shook her head frantically, her hands clasped together in front of her. No, I didn't blame you. But Ryan, he understood me. He listened to me. He made me feel alive again. Something I lost. And I don't even know why I'm telling you this now. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I stood there, staring at her. The woman I had spent years with, the woman I had loved, was sitting in front of me, broken and full of regret. But none of that mattered anymore. The trust was gone. The foundation of everything we had built together had been cracked, shattered. And where is he now? I asked, my voice low, dangerous. Olivia hesitated for a moment, and I could see the panic in her eyes. She didn't want to say it, but I needed to hear it. I had to hear the truth, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever have to hear. He's not coming, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. My brow furrowed. What do you mean he's not coming? Right, he's married. He has a family. Children. He can't leave them. The words hit me like a slap. I had thought the affair was just a fling, a brief moment of weakness. But it wasn't. It wasn't just about me and her anymore. It was about a man who had a wife, children, everything he needed, while my wife was here in our home, sneaking behind my back. I felt the ground beneath me tilt, like the earth was spinning too fast, and I couldn't keep up. So, you were having an affair with a married man? I asked, my voice hoarse. A man with a family? A man who was never going to leave them for you? She nodded, the tears falling freely now, but her face was a mask of guilt and shame. I never expected him to leave them, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop wanting him, Ethan. I don't know why. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to hurt her the way she had hurt me. But instead I stood there, numb, empty. The realization settled in like a stone in my chest. Everything she had told me, everything I thought I understood about us, was a lie. And in that moment, I knew something I hadn't realized before. I didn't know Olivia at all. I stood there, stunned, as the weight of her confession crashed over me. Every word she had spoken felt like a punch to the gut. But the silence that followed was somehow worse, hanging thick between us, suffocating everything in the room. She was crying, but not in the way I had imagined. There was something off about it, something rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself that she had done nothing wrong. For a long moment, neither of us moved. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stared at her, waiting for the truth to finally sink in. But Olivia, as if the gravity of the situation hadn't reached her, suddenly chuckled, a strange, almost manic laugh. It wasn't a laugh of someone who had just admitted to destroying the foundation of her marriage. It was a laugh of someone trying to dodge reality. What's so funny? I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. My pulse was still racing, my mind whirling, but she was laughing at me. She wiped her eyes quickly, like she was trying to brush away the evidence of her emotions. Oh, Ethan, really? She said, shaking her head in mock exasperation. You think I'm some sort of villain, don't you? Her tone was more like a teacher trying to explain something to a clueless child. Do you really think that's how it happened? You've been talking about Ryan like he's some kind of savior, haven't you? I stepped back, trying to wrap my head around what she was saying. What are you talking about? I demanded. You've been having an affair with him for months, Olivia. And now you're, what? Laughing it off? Denying it? Olivia's smile turned more predatory, as if she had suddenly regained control of the conversation. Denying it? She laughed again, louder this time, almost mocking. You really are something, aren't you? Let me get this straight. You find a few messages on my phone, and suddenly I'm some cheater, some liar? You think I've been hiding this entire secret life from you, Ethan? Do you really think I'm that cruel? The words stung like they were meant to. She was trying to make me feel stupid, as if I were the one who was out of touch with reality. But I couldn't back down. Not now. Stop playing games, I shot back, my voice low and firm. I've seen the messages, Olivia. I've seen everything. Don't think you can talk your way out of this. Ryan, whoever he is, has been a part of our lives. You've been sneaking around behind my back for months, And now you're trying to tell me it's all in my head? She paused, the smile fading from her face. But instead of the guilt I expected to see, there was something colder, more calculated in her eyes. She turned her back to me, walking toward the living room, where her phone was charging on the side table. Without a word, she picked it up and dialed a number, Ryan's number, I assumed. I watched her, my heart hammering in my chest. What the hell was she doing? The phone rang, and my stomach twisted with each passing second. The ringing stopped, but the phone didn't pick up. Olivia's finger hovered over the screen as she stared at the display with furrowed brows. That's strange, she murmured, almost to herself. He always answers. I didn't know what to make of it. Was she trying to prove something? That she wasn't lying? That there was something more to this twisted affair? I wasn't sure, but I wasn't about to let her walk away from this without facing the consequences. Did you just call him? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but failing miserably. Olivia gave me a glance over her shoulder, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes, a crack in her confident, dismissive facade. Yeah, she said nonchalantly, like it was the most normal thing in the world. But I guess he's busy. Probably with his wife and kids, you know? I froze. The way she said it so casually sent a chill through me. My blood ran cold. I had seen the number before. I had checked it. I had made sure it wasn't just some coincidence that the same name kept showing up. Ryan. It was the same number. But now it wasn't going through? Olivia, I trailed off, feeling a knot form in my throat. Why is his number disconnected? She blinked, her lips twitching as if she were trying to hold back some sort of amusement. Oh, come on. You didn't think I was that stupid, did you? I stood there, trying to make sense of what she was saying. What did she mean? Was this all part of her game? She had admitted that she'd been seeing him, so why wasn't his number working? Why didn't it add up? But Olivia wasn't done. She turned back to face me, her smile now thin and sharp. You really think I'd be stupid enough to give you proof that Ryan was anything more than a figment of your imagination? You think I'd leave a trail for you to follow? She shook her head, her tone dripping with condescension. You've been playing detective, Ethan, but you're too late. I covered my tracks. Ryan's not the person you think he is. I felt the blood drain from my face. What was she saying? The walls were closing in, and I was just standing there, unable to process it all. You've been lying to me this entire time, I said, more to myself than to her. You've been hiding him, covering your tracks. And now, you're pretending like none of it matters. She crossed her arms over her chest, her expression suddenly hardening. It doesn't matter, Ethan. None of it matters. You're just upset because you think you were the only one who was supposed to matter. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted this to happen. She stopped, letting her words hang in the air. But this isn't about you anymore. It's about me. My heart sank. The words, the way she spoke, so final, so detached, it was like a slap in the face. She was dismissing me. Dismissing everything we had built. It wasn't about love or regret or guilt. It was about her own needs, her own desires. I was staring at a stranger. The woman I had married was no longer the person I thought she was. She wasn't just lying to me about Ryan. She was lying about herself, about everything. And now, the cracks in our relationship were gaping wide open, revealing the ugly truth that I couldn't ignore anymore. The phone call, the lies, the laughter, all of it was part of a game she had been playing for far too long. I had been so caught up in my own pain, in my own need for answers, that I had missed the most important part. Olivia had already made her decision. She didn't need me anymore. I couldn't stop myself from speaking. You really think I'm going to just walk away from this, like it's nothing? That you can lie and manipulate me and... She cut me off with a sharp wave of her hand. Enough, Ethan. Just stop. I didn't know what to say anymore. I was tired of the games. Tired of the lies. Tired of her pretending like she could control the narrative. Olivia had been trying to twist the truth, deflect my anger, make me second-guess myself. But I wasn't going to let her. Not anymore. As she stood there, arms crossed, with that smug, self-righteous look on her face, I could feel something inside me shift. The anger that had been burning beneath the surface suddenly cooled, replaced by something more dangerous, clarity. I wasn't the man who had been cowering in the shadows of her lies anymore. I knew everything now. Olivia, I said, my voice steady, almost calm. You can keep playing these games, but it's not going to work. I know the truth. All of it? Her face faltered for just a moment, her eyes narrowing, trying to hold onto that mask she had been wearing. But I wasn't backing down. This wasn't a conversation about blame or accusations anymore. This was me taking control, me making her confront what she had done. I know about Ryan, I continued, watching her closely. I know how long it's been going on. I know about the late-night calls, the secret meetings. I know about the pictures you exchanged, the lies you told. I even know about his family. Her breath caught for a second, her shoulders stiffening. But she didn't speak. She was trying to regain composure, I could see it. She was running through her options, trying to think of how to spin this. But I wasn't giving her the chance to manipulate the situation anymore. You can deny it all you want, I went on, my voice getting stronger. You can laugh it off, pretend like I'm just overreacting, like you've got everything under control. But the truth is, Olivia, I've seen it all. Every little detail. I paused for a moment, letting my words sink in. I could see the color drain from her face. She was starting to realize that I wasn't some fool she could just fool around with anymore. I wasn't the guy who had been sitting around, wondering if maybe he was the problem. I wasn't looking for her to justify herself. I was looking for something else. You want to know how I know? I said, watching her with cold eyes. I did my homework. I followed the trail. I found the emails, the deleted texts, the phone records. Hell, I even tracked down Ryan's number and called it myself. Her mouth opened, but she didn't say anything. Her hands shook, just a little, and I could see the panic start to creep into her expression. It was a crack in her facade. And I wasn't going to let her fill it with more lies. I know he's married with kids, I added, my voice quiet but sharp. I know that he's not going to leave his family for you. That was never the plan, was it? You were just the escape, someone to make you feel special for a little while. And now you're stuck in this mess. The reality is he wasn't the great love affair you've built him up to be. He was just another man who took what you were willing to give him and then walked away when it wasn't convenient. The words hit her like a slap. She blinked rapidly as if trying to stop the tears from forming, but they came anyway. I watched as she tried to collect herself, her face contorting in a mixture of guilt and frustration. She wasn't ready to admit it, not yet. She wasn't ready to face what she had done. Stop pretending like this wasn't about more than just sex, Olivia, I said, leaning forward, my voice getting quieter but more intense. I know you wanted more. You wanted him to love you. You wanted him to leave his family, to choose you. But you knew that wasn't going to happen, didn't you? Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table, and for a moment, I thought she was going to break down completely. But instead, she straightened up, almost defensively, trying to hold onto whatever pride she had left. She opened her mouth to speak, but I wasn't done. I'm giving you a chance here, Olivia, I said, holding her gaze. A chance to explain yourself. To tell me what you were thinking. To give me a real reason for what you did, not just these pathetic excuses. But why did you throw everything away for a man who was never going to choose you? She closed her eyes for a second, like she was gathering herself, preparing to give me something more than just denial. But when she spoke, her voice cracked, soft and fragile. I don't know, Ethan. I don't know why I did it. I just needed something. I felt so invisible. So lost. You were there, but you weren't there, not really. You didn't see me, Ethan. You didn't see me. I stood there, frozen for a moment. She was trying to pull me into her emotional chaos. She was trying to make me feel sorry for her, to distract me from the reality of what she had done. But I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. I saw you, Olivia, I said firmly. I saw you when I tried to connect with you. I saw you when I tried to make this marriage work. But you were already somewhere else. You were already planning your escape. She looked at me then, truly looked at me for the first time in weeks, maybe months. It wasn't guilt or anger in her eyes anymore. It was something else, something raw. But even with that look, I knew I couldn't save her. Not anymore. I didn't want this to happen, Ethan. I didn't want to hurt you. She was speaking quickly now, almost pleading. But I was drowning. And Ryan, he was a lifeline. Even if it was only for a short time. I just needed to feel alive again. I didn't respond immediately. Her words felt hollow now. I couldn't even process her explanation, because it didn't change the fact that she had made a choice. She had made the choice to lie, to betray me, to destroy everything we had. No amount of self-pity was going to fix that. So that's it? I asked, my voice flat. That's the reason? You were lonely? You were looking for something that wasn't there? Because you couldn't find it with me? She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I was selfish, Ethan. I know that now. But at the time, I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to come back. There was the honesty, at least. It wasn't a justification, but it was the truth. And in that moment, I knew something. I could never go back to who we were. I didn't know where we could go from here, but I wasn't about to beg her to stay. I was done. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't hear her excuses or listen to her weak attempts to explain what she had done. Olivia had made her choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't want to play these games anymore. I didn't want her manipulation, her lies, her half-baked apologies. I didn't want to be the victim of this twisted charade any longer. Without saying another word, I turned and walked toward the kitchen table. I reached into the drawer where I had hidden them, where I had kept them for the last few days, just waiting for the right moment. The divorce papers. The final proof that I was done. That I wasn't going to allow her to drag me through any more of this. I didn't look back as I grabbed the envelope, but I could feel her eyes on me, the weight of her stare pressing against my back. She was waiting for me to say something, to tell her I'd changed my mind, that I'd forgive her, that we could work through this. But there was no turning back now. When I turned around, I didn't give her a chance to speak. I tossed the envelope onto the table in front of her, the sound of it landing like a hammer, loud and final. Here, I said, my voice cold. These are the divorce papers. I'm done with the lies. I'm done with you. Her eyes widened, her face paling as she glanced at the envelope. She didn't immediately reach for it. She just stared at it, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. But I wasn't giving her any more chances to backpedal or try to change the subject. I've played your game long enough, Olivia, I continued, my voice growing harder. I don't need your explanations anymore. I don't need you to tell me why you did it or how sorry you are. I just want the truth. And the truth is, you don't care about me. You never did. You've been playing me from the start. She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off, holding up my hand. No more. No more talking. No more excuses. I'm done. I could see the panic starting to spread across her face. The confidence she had when she first walked in, the smugness, was slipping away. She was starting to realize that this time, there was no going back. There was no more pretending. She had lost me. Ethan, please, she said, her voice trembling. Don't do this. I made a mistake, I know, but we can still fix this. We can still. I shook my head. No, Olivia. I don't want this anymore. I don't want you anymore. You broke everything. And now it's over. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at the papers, her hands twitching like she wanted to reach for them but couldn't. Finally, she let out a soft, defeated breath and looked up at me. I'm sorry, Ethan. I never meant for it to go this far. Neither did I replied, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. But we're past the point of fixing anything. I'm not going to keep living in this lie. Her eyes flickered with something, regret, maybe, or maybe just the realization that this was the end. She reached for the papers slowly, and as her fingers brushed the edge of the envelope, I felt a strange, hollow emptiness settle in my chest. But this was the right choice. The only choice. I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. Sign them, Olivia, I said, my voice as firm as I could make it. And we can end this. No more games. No more lies. She nodded, her face falling, but there was nothing left for her to say. She knew it and I knew it. It was over. When Olivia left the house, I thought she'd try to find some way to save face, maybe beg me to reconsider, or cry about how she never meant for things to go this far. But I didn't expect her to come back later that day. I didn't expect her to show up at all, actually. She had already made her choice, and so had I. There was nothing left for her here anymore. I stayed in the house for hours, going through the motions of packing up some of my own things, clearing the space. But every time I looked around, the weight of everything, the betrayal, the lies, the shattered trust, felt like it was closing in on me. I couldn't stay there. Not now, not with her in it. Not with the ghosts of everything we used to be. By the time I left, I had already called the locksmith to change the locks. I had already taken the necessary steps to make sure Olivia wouldn't be able to just waltz back into my life, into my house, whenever she felt like it. She didn't deserve that kind of access anymore. Not after everything. I wasn't sure what I expected when I came back, but it wasn't this. When I pulled into the driveway that evening, I saw the heap of her belongings, clothes, shoes, books, strewn all over the front lawn. The sight of it made my stomach tighten, but I didn't flinch. I didn't feel a shred of pity. I had told her, in no uncertain terms, that it was over. Now she was facing the consequences. Her car was parked across the street, and as I approached the house, I saw Olivia standing there, her face a mix of confusion and disbelief, her eyes red from crying. She hadn't even stepped onto the grass yet, just stood at the curb, staring at the pile of her things like she couldn't quite comprehend it. "Ethan," she said, her voice cracking as she rushed toward me. "What the hell is this?" I didn't answer at first. I just stood there, watching her approach, feeling the anger and disappointment well up again. I wasn't angry with her anymore. That had burned itself out. But the hurt? The betrayal? That wasn't something that just disappeared. "You didn't think I was serious?" I said, my voice cold and flat. "You didn't think I meant it when I said I was done?" She stopped in her tracks, her expression shifting to one of shock and then defiance. "You can't just throw me out like this, Ethan. You can't." "The locks are changed," I interrupted, pointing toward the door. "You can't get back in. This isn't your home anymore." She looked at the front door, her face twisting in disbelief. "You're kicking me out? After everything?" I didn't flinch. "You did this, Olivia. Not me. You brought this on yourself. You broke everything, and now you're dealing with the fallout." She glanced down at her things on the lawn, her eyes darting back to me. "You can't expect me to just walk away from this. You don't understand." Her voice broke as she fought to hold back tears. I had no sympathy left to give her. "No, Olivia. You don't understand. You've been living a lie for months. You've been hiding behind your own excuses, pretending like I didn't matter. And now you're standing here, asking me to feel sorry for you? No." Her face flushed, the tears she had been holding back finally spilling down her cheeks. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "I never meant for it to end this way. I never wanted this." I could see it in her eyes, regret, confusion, the faintest hint of desperation, but it was too little, too late. I had seen the truth. I had seen her choose everything else over me, over us. "Take your things and go, Olivia," I said, my voice firm, resolute. "I'm done." For a moment, she stood there, looking as though she wanted to say something more, but she couldn't find the words. Finally, without another word, she turned and began gathering her things from the lawn, her movements stiff, mechanical, like she was just going through the motions. I didn't stay to watch. I didn't need to. The decision had been made. I turned away from her and walked into my car, driving off without a second glance. She could take her time with her things. She could cry, rage, or beg. But nothing was going to change what I had already decided. The Olivia I had known, my wife, had died the moment she decided to betray me. And now, there was nothing left but the wreckage. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just in temperature, but in its atmosphere, clinical, detached, like a sterile examination of what had once been my life. Olivia sat across from me, looking like she hadn't slept in days, her makeup done just enough to hide the exhaustion in her eyes. But the veil of composure she tried to maintain couldn't mask the panic brewing beneath the surface. I knew she was going to fight. I knew she would try to twist the truth, play the victim, but I wasn't about to let her. I had come prepared. Olivia's lawyer had tried to present a narrative that painted her as a misunderstood wife, someone caught in the whirlwind of a crumbling marriage. They tried to insinuate that I had been neglectful, that I had been distant, that I had pushed her into the arms of another man. But the truth was simple, and I had the proof to back it up. When the judge called my name, I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. Olivia's eyes flicked toward me for a brief second, but I didn't look back. I was past caring what she thought. I stepped to the stand, taking a deep breath before beginning. Your Honor, I am here today not to seek revenge, but for the truth to come to light. The woman sitting across from me, my estranged wife, has betrayed me in ways that I never could have imagined. I paused for a moment, collecting my thoughts, then reached into the folder I had brought with me, pulling out the first piece of evidence. The silence in the room was thick as I placed the photographs in front of the judge. These are photos of my wife, Olivia, and her affair partner, Ryan, I said, looking directly at Olivia for the first time in days. I have records of their communication, emails, text messages, and calls. I have proof that this affair wasn't a brief mistake, but an ongoing deception. It lasted for months, long after I had already begun to notice the distance growing between us. The room was still. Even Olivia's lawyer, who had been confidently making his case until that moment, went silent. Olivia's face drained of color, and her eyes flickered down to the table in front of her, avoiding mine. The weight of the photographs on the table seemed to weigh more heavily with each passing second. I continued, my voice steady, but my anger rising with each word. This isn't just about broken trust. This is about betrayal. My wife lied to me. She cheated on me with a married man, someone who, I discovered, has children of his own. I want the court to understand the full scope of what happened here. There was a brief pause as the judge scanned the photos, then glanced up at me. And how did you come by this information, Mr. Whitmore? I straightened my back, my confidence growing. I hired a private investigator, Your Honor. My suspicions grew, and I needed to know the truth. And the truth was more painful than I could have imagined. I could hear Olivia's lawyer shifting in his seat, ready to make his objections, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to give her the chance to manipulate the story. The affair was not a secret for long, I went on. Eventually, Ryan's wife found out. She came to me with proof, text messages, phone records, even a recording of a conversation she had with my wife. I turned toward the defense table, my eyes locking on Olivia. She confirmed everything. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Olivia's face tightened, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She looked like she was trying to shrink into herself, to disappear, but I wasn't letting her. Ryan's wife had agreed to testify. Her testimony was the final nail in the coffin, an undeniable confirmation of everything I had already presented. She described how she had found the messages on Ryan's phone, how she confronted him, and how, once she learned of Olivia's involvement, she reached out to me. The woman had been heartbroken, devastated by the betrayal, but she was determined to make sure the truth came to light. Her voice had cracked as she spoke on the stand, but her words were sharp and unwavering. I never thought I would be in this position, she said, but when I found out my husband had been cheating on me with another woman, I had to do the right thing. I wanted Mr. Whitmore to know the truth. By the time the testimony was over, I could feel the shift in the room. Olivia's defense had crumbled. There was no more room for denial. She couldn't spin the story anymore. Her lawyer tried one last time to object, to claim that it was all circumstantial, that I was just trying to ruin her reputation out of spite. But the evidence was there, plain and simple. Olivia had lied, cheated, and destroyed everything she had with me. The judge turned toward Olivia, her face a mask of professional detachment. Do you have anything to say in your defense, Mrs. Whitmore? Olivia looked like she might speak, but no words came out. She sat there, her shoulders hunched, her eyes on the floor. And for the first time, I saw her for what she truly was, just another person caught in her own web of lies. She had no justification, no excuse that could make this right. The judge didn't need to hear more. The truth had been laid bare, and there was no escaping it. I believe we've heard enough, the judge said, looking at both of us. The court will reconvene tomorrow to discuss the division of assets and any other outstanding matters. We will adjourn for the day. Olivia didn't speak as she stood up, her movements stiff, her face pale. She didn't even glance at me as she left the courtroom. The silence that followed her departure felt heavier than the air before. I had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the finality of a door slamming shut. I had been right to seek the truth. I had been right to stand up for myself. But now, with the evidence in front of me, with Olivia exposed, all I could feel was the hollow emptiness of everything we had lost. Goodbye.